I would say like start leaning into noticing your emotions and just holding them. So not needing to do anything, but just holding them.
Oh my goodness. So welcome to the Get Loved Up podcast. I'm Koya Webb and I'm here with Lauren Ash.
Hey.
This woman is so phenomenal. We met, I think, 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
And we'd known each other. We've been in the same community of holistic health and wellness.
Yeah.
And I feel like our first deep conversation together was the beginning of what is now turned into a friendship and sisterhood, and it's been magical.
Yes.
But she has been doing so much work in the world. She has her community, Black Girl in She has a business, Ivory and Ash. She has so many things that she's doing in the world. So we're going to really dive deep with her, and I'm going to let her share more about her journey to start off with.
Thank you. I'm really excited. It is wild that it's been 3 years.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's only been 3 years, to be honest.
That's true. That's true.
It seems longer.
Yeah,
it
that's
seems like
true.
I've been knowing you like half my life now.
That's true. Yeah, because we connect on a soul level, but then there's also the career support that we give one another. So it's like all the things. But
and just tell me, because when we had our conversation, that the Lauren that I'm looking at now is not the Lauren that was on the phone 3 years ago.
I think it's a more enfolded, expanded, blossomed version of me.
Yes.
So my journey, I love this question because it allows me to just go where I want to go. But I have always been a deeply creative person, and I'd say I've always been a spiritual person. You know, I grew up within a more traditional church, like Christian, framework within my family, and I'm really grateful for the fact that I always had a deep connection to the divine, to God, and to, at the end of the day, myself. My mom actually sent me a self-portrait that I painted of myself as a teenager 3 days ago, which I believe was on the full moon, which is really interesting because my mom's not really into like moon, things.
Most
the moon connection.
Like, huh?
Yes. But it was really beautiful. I was like, oh, wow. Like I literally texted her back, oh my God. And she was like, you were formulating Black Girl in Home. And I was like, oh my God. So there have been all these things that have been coming up lately that have shown me that the framework and the foundation was already laid back then, right? So I grew up in Minnesota. I grew up in a predominantly white settings for most of my life, even in college. And it was in college that when I was a RA, a series of racially motivated hate crimes that didn't happen directly to me, but to 3 Black women who lived down the hall from me, really caused me to wake up to a lot of realities about racism and the very real implications of being a Black woman, and that was before even Obama administration. That was before, I think, there was this additional, like, both sweep of like Black pride for a lot of us, but also like the repercussions of that and allowing us to see the very strong racism that does still exist, within a large pocket of this nation. So anyway, this was before all of that. So I was, I think, just navigating like, oh, I'm Black, but that doesn't really carry much significance for me, right? But that really caused me to wake up to, no, I'm a Black woman and this matters, and there's a lot of prejudice and discrimination that still exists, and what can I do about that, right? So in college, that was the awakening of myself to my identity and the importance of connecting with other Black women and Black people more broadly. So, at the time I didn't really know anything about wellness or well-being. Of course I liked to take care of myself. I was like running, but I wasn't really thinking about this is necessary for my spiritual growth, emotional growth. I wasn't thinking about any of that. Right after undergrad, I went right on to graduate school, and I was studying Black feminism, again, the framework for Black Girl in Home.
It was already circulating.
It was circulating,
Wow.
And of course I come, like many Black women do, from a really strong lineage of like phenomenal Black women. So that was imprinted within me already, just waiting to like take its own shape within how I would express that. So I was studying Black feminism. I was studying a lot about like Black history and culture. And a lot of it was amazing and beautiful and inspiring, but a lot of it was also very heavy. And I started to notice how much I was embodying a lot of my stress, just in general from grad school.
Right.
And I also wasn't really that connected to a lot of people that I went to school with. So I was feeling lonely and isolated for the first time really in my life. And I turned to yoga. And I actually sometimes forget this because, you know, like former relationships that you're like, I'm not even thinking about that anymore.
Right.
But I actually had gone through a breakup actually in the first year of the start of a relationship and a breakup within 3 months. And it felt like a longer relationship just because it was so like passionate and dramatic, honestly.
Right.
But that is what really led me to yoga in a more profound way. The healing from how I felt after the breakup and all the emotions around that.
And how old were you at this time?
So I was 22.
Oh, that's when I started yoga.
Really?
At 22. Did you know that?
I don't think I knew the age. I don't think I knew the age. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So magical.
That is magical. That is magical. I mean, I was doing like one-on-one sessions with my yoga teacher who owned the yoga studio, who was also a licensed spiritual practitioner.
Right.
So I'm really grateful that my first experience with the practice was a very spiritual one, you know? And I took a yoga for transformation class, which was an 8-week series that dove into yoga as a holistic lifestyle, the philosophy, you know, the 8 limbs of yoga,
Right.
and all of that. And so it really opened my eyes to, no wonder this makes me feel amazing. There's like this deep spiritual depth and all of this history behind it and all this philosophy. It's not just the physical asana. It's like so much more than that. So,
Right.
you know, I had, again, pre-grad school, the groundwork laid for the connection with my people, essentially. And then in grad school came the connection with really myself as a holistic person and as a holistic being. And also in grad school, my second and final year, I really met the person who's now, you know, my best friend, Chelsea, and my really close best girlfriend from college, Fuchsia, also came to Purdue, which is where we were all at school together. So like the 3 of us formed this really deep sisterhood. And it was, and it still is like the deepest sisterhood that I have. And again, they're both Black women. So after grad school, I went back to Minnesota for a year. I was really on track to continue carrying on the legacy of this really phenomenal family. They do a lot of work within the St. Paul, Minneapolis community at this Black theater company. I was so in love with the mission of this place. I was so in love with the work that I was doing with young people around art for social change. And it was not mine. You know how sometimes like we have mentors, we have people in our lives who are molding us for a certain thing and we're excited about it, but sometimes you're like, wait, is this mine?
Right.
Is this really for me? And so at the end of that year, I wanted nothing more than to have like a full-time job at this place and to work there literally, I thought, for the rest of my life and just do this thing and carry on all this work that was being done. It was a place that was born out of the Black arts movement. I was so connected. But I turned down this job because my intuition was like, no. It was like,
and you didn't have anything lined up at the time.
No.
That's
my
powerful.
lease was ending. I did not have another job. I had said no to this other contracted job that had wanted to renew a contract with me, but I said no to them because I was going to say yes to this full-time offer. And then I said no because it didn't feel right in my spirit. So literally days later, I hopped on the mega bus and went down to Chicago to visit my best friend Chelsea, who was starting her PhD at Northwestern University. And a few days in, we're having a great time. She looked at me and she was like, why are you going back to Minnesota? And I didn't have an answer for her. So she was like, great, you should just stay here. And I was like, I should.
Wow.
So, you know, this was back in 2013. And I knew that I loved Chicago because when I was in grad school, it was about a 4-hour drive away. So I would go there often. So I knew, in a sense, and my mom had already prophesied.
Right. But
I was going to go there.
In your spirit. You had nothing planned in Chicago. You're just like, it just feels good.
Yes.
Okay.
And at least in my conscious awareness, that was one of the first moments of my really kind of radical practice of just listening to my intuition and moving in alignment with it. You know, I'm sure I did it. We all do it as kids, but we just don't always remember, you know?
Right.
But, like, that's the first time that I'm like, as an adult, can consciously remember doing that, you know, even when logically it didn't perhaps make sense. Right. But it was just like, no, I need to move with this.
And what do you feel like you learned from that moment?
So much. Just how much possibility can come from you just choosing to say yes to that inner knowing. Right. You know, because there was really no reason for me to go back home other than the fact that maybe I should, right? Because I didn't have something for me in Chicago tangibly. But I just started over completely in Chicago, and that was one of the best decisions I made. You know?
When did after that, were you practicing yoga right away there? What was your life in Chicago?
Yeah, I love that question. So my life in Chicago at first was get a job by any means necessary.
But not just any job, right?
Yes, well...
Just any job.
No. So yes, and. So I actually was working in the restaurant industry while I was applying to these dream jobs that I would see posted. I was like, I'm perfect for this. I'm going to get this, right? And I actually was practicing yoga. I had this like work for trade thing where I would like volunteer and get free yoga, you know? So that I was very rooted and very committed still to my yoga practice.
Right.
And it's so incredible, Koya. Like I had three powerful like job positions that I saw that I applied for, and all three of them, and it was almost like clockwork, 3 months in a row. I went through the interview process and I almost got the job for all three. For whatever reason, like 3 of my potential supervisors all told me, we almost hired you, or you were the runner-up, but 3 times. And that's a magical number, you know?
Right.
And so now I look back and I realize you were never supposed to get any of those jobs. That was God telling you there's actually something that you are supposed to do, that you are supposed to create. And again, my mom has always told me that since I was young. Right. She's always known that I would create something on my own terms and really do something really powerful.
And I think that's a word right there. I just want to take a pause because I know that's something that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with is rejection.
Yes.
And I sure did. Right. And so moving into, but like that rejection, like how did you absorb it at that time? And what have you learned about absorbing rejection?
Wow. At the time, I think I was definitely disappointed. You know, I think too, a part of my ego was like bruised because it was just like, I have great experience. I have a master's degree. Why wouldn't they?
Right. Like, how could they? What do you mean? No.
Exactly.
Right.
But I think I am also a resilient person. So I was just like, okay, something else must be out there that's better for me. And I was absolutely right. And I had to create it.
Wow. And so that's when?
And that is when I ended up basically getting this job, this nonprofit job that a friend was transitioning out of. And she's like, look, I'm leaving. You have all the credentials. I can just pretty much hand this off to you, and I'm sure that they'll hire you. And that's what happened. But then that was not the job for me. Like literally week 1, I was like, what am I doing here?
Wow.
But that disillusionment and that like dissatisfaction is what led me to do yoga teacher training. You know?
Right.
So it wasn't because I wanted to become a teacher. It was really because I was deepening my curiosity into a practice and a spiritual tool and journey that I loved. So I was just like, I got to do something that matters to me. Really.
That's huge because 3 rejections.
Yeah.
1, this is not for me. And you're like, let me just do some yoga and deepen my knowledge of self.
Literally.
And that is so powerful because that's one of my biggest recommendations when things aren't going the way we think they should go. Go within to work things out. So tell us, how did that help you work things out?
It really did. Like first of all, I signed up for it the day that it started. It was starting in 15 minutes and I walked in there and I was like, I'm going to sign up for this.
Wow. Yes.
They were like, it starts today. I was like, I know.
That's amazing.
So pretty much right away, I started to get all these revelations.
Right.
And I had always been a journaler ever since I was young, but I was really starting to write everything down, which I encourage everyone like to do when they're at these moments of transition. It's like, you have to trust that these ideas are coming on time and on purpose, you know? And so I was writing down, okay, will it be like a foundation or a nonprofit or a community organization that connects Black women with yoga? Because, you know, I had been practicing consistently at that point for about 3 years. And the vast majority of my experiences in yoga studios was that I was the only woman of color.
Right.
And rarely, if ever, had I had a Black woman teaching the course, or even just, you know, brown woman, like anyone of color. I was like,
and how did that make you
we?
feel, being the only Black woman?
So I think for a while I was just so used to it, right? It was just kind of like the norm. But then I was just like, wait a minute, something's wrong. Like, if I'm getting so much from this, so much healing, so much opportunity for reflection, release in my body, I want other Black women to also have access to that too.
Right.
And even in them, so when I was in Chicago too, you know, a place as diverse as Chicago and still seeing that disparity, I was like annoyed and like just upset. It just didn't seem like it had to be, right? And so I was like, okay, well, if I'm the one that's noticing this, then I should be the one to intervene in that, right? And I don't think I was really figuring that out consciously, but that's what I was working through as I was reflecting.
Right.
So I get to the second week of yoga teacher training. Maybe it was the first week. It was definitely the beginning. And, you know, during yoga teacher training, you have to practice a ton. And so I was in a class and literally the phrase Black girl in Om came to me and I wrote it down. And I really just started to reflect on what that meant for me.
Right.
And, you know, Om in Sanskrit being this vibration that's all encompassing, you know, rebirth, transformation, death, all of that. To me, like, being a Black girl now means that I am a Black woman that's really committed to all aspects of the journey. And that's challenging, you know.
And that does represent who you are. Like, what I've seen since I've known you in these last 3 years, you're constantly evolving and studying and it's a beautiful thing. And, you know, what you said before reminds me of the quote, like, we are the ones that we've been waiting for.
Absolutely.
And you've been that one. So tell me how then you started to birth. You know, I know you have a huge team now, so start to tell and share how did you start and grow your business, Black Girl in Om?
Yeah, so 3 months after that day where I received that download and I reflected a lot, I started Black Girl in Om in the living room of my mentor's condo in the South Loop of Chicago. So I really love honing in on that because a lot of times now there's this enthusiasm when people get these ideas to do it big, right? Or you have to have money, or you have to have like a studio, or you have to have an investment, whatever. I literally started in the most grassroots way possible. And also, reminder, I was only in Chicago for about a year at that point. I didn't know people. Most of the people that I knew were graduate students. And so they were like off on their campuses doing work. Like, I did not have a network. You know what I mean? I didn't really know people. So I really started with faith that this thing that I knew I needed, because that's why I started Black Girl in Om. I needed it. I wanted it for myself. But then it resonated so powerfully, and it was word of mouth. So Black Girl in Om grew tremendously from being, you know, one night a week experience to 3 times a week to monthly pop-ups with the DJ and a rooftop. And we started building out the online publication, which launched in spring of 2015, that had contributors from all over the world sharing their stories about what it means to be well and what it means to seek therapy when within our community it's still very much a taboo topic, and what it means to consider plant-based eating when, again, within our community it's still like, what, you don't eat meat, you know? So all of these different conversations that I saw deeply important, you know, at that time, especially, there were the mainstream wellness publications that didn't really as much speak directly to the needs of Black women. And I was like, we need this. So that same spring, you know, we have been doing our ongoing yoga, meditation, and conversation series on a local level in Chicago. We had launched with the online publication, and then that's when, like, there was just a lot more visibility to the work because it was necessary, you know? So I remember that spring, the first like big feature on the work that I was cultivating with my team came out in New York Magazine's The Cut, and it was Ashley Weatherford, who I'm still, really cool with. And I think the title of it was The Startup That's Driving Black Women to Yoga. And it was so affirming because it was like, wow, I just needed this community, and now you're affirming it, and that's allowing that visibility to raise not just conscious awareness of Black Girl in Om, that's great, but conscious awareness about why it's important for us to be able to have spaces where we can come together and connect and heal and be ourselves and be vulnerable and just be our whole authentic selves and cultivate that together.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And hats off to you for just taking that leap of faith and moving forward in that way, because I feel like a lot of people, running the Get Loved Up yoga teacher training, which you were a part of, people are like, so, okay, right after graduation, so how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? And this is not working. And I just love the fact that you said it started grassroots. You started in someone's apartment. I started right here in the building now I am in someone's home. Same way, and we just did yoga with friends, and it was many, many, many years of just doing that foundation, building that foundation. So speaking of foundation, like what do you feel, because I know you've been through a little transition, so we want to give people, like, what is some of the, I guess, rocks in the road that you had when starting? I know, there was a lot of transition and kind of boundaries that you had to set. And I think that's the hardest things for people that are like you and I, that are lovers and givers. And okay, I'm building this company and I want all these people in it. And then you realize, wait a minute. I actually have to have a little discernment. And so can you speak to that and kind of boundaries? Because I do think that's one thing that I admire about you, is that you're really great with setting boundaries and knowing, okay, this is not for me, but this is.
I mean, it's always a work in progress. It is. And I'm sure you can relate to this, but sometimes when you grow so quickly, both on a personal level and on a career level, you actually have to lovingly force yourself to pause and realize that growth, because like every, I think, level of growth demands new boundaries. So for me, I think 3-year mark of Black Girl in Om, which was when I decided to do Get Loved Up yoga teacher training with you, was a very big moment for me about boundaries and the level of self-love that I needed to make sure I was investing in myself. So, and I just love telling the story, but that was when we met. So we had met a few months prior, and I remember we met in Chicago when you were in town, and you were hinting that you were going to be starting a yoga teacher training, and I was like, let me know. I've been thinking about doing another one, because again, the number 3 is really powerful for me, and I feel like at that moment it had been 3 years of me guiding Black Girl in Om and 3 years of me teaching yoga as well. So I just knew, I was like, I feel like I want to do another one just to reinvest in myself. So I remember 2 weeks before Get Loved Up happened, I found out about it through our mutual friend, Crystal. And I remember being like, why didn't I hear about it? Like, Koya said it was coming, and I feel like I follow her on Instagram. Like, I have not seen this thing, but we find out about things when we're supposed to. And I remember I messaged you, and you were like, I'm free now, girl, let's hop on the phone. And you were like, if you feel like it's for you, meditate on it, let me know. And for the next few days, it was just me battling with myself and my intuition. It was like, logically, it didn't make sense because it was literally 2 weeks away and I had not planned to do this thing. But intuitively, I knew that I needed to give that to myself, you know? And guess what? Intuition always wins in my world. So I found myself down, you know, at the airport, flying down to LA. And when I touched down, it just immediately felt like home. And that whole experience, which was the first Get Loved Up yoga teacher training, which is so magical that I was a part of it. But it was absolutely the space and the time that I needed to get clear on how I was or wasn't honoring myself, the boundaries that I did or did not have, you know, like things like, oh, you really don't think that you can give yourself time to yourself. You know, like you actually really don't think that, but you promote that for other people. You know what I mean? And realizing that dissonance.
And unpack what that looks like, because I think most people feel like they're giving themselves time, but it's not happening.
I mean, for me, it was like, you know, every day we would get up and the sun would come up.
Right.
We would meditate, have quiet time, drink that lemon water,
dirty water,
with the cilantro in it.
Yes.
Practice yoga, have a sharing circle, have some time to journal. That alone allowed me to realize, oh wow, like you actually are really feeding yourself, nourishing your spirit, nourishing your mind, giving yourself space and quiet at the top of your day. Why can't you just do this all the time? Why does this have to be something that's just for yoga teacher training? Because especially as an entrepreneur, I realize not everybody may be able to do that, you know, at least that long,
for 2
like,
hours.
luxurious, right?
Right.
But for me as an entrepreneur who's in wellness, like my work is better for it. You know what I mean? And I have that flexibility to decide, and I'm very grateful for that. I thank God every day that I have that flexibility to decide how I spend my time. Right. So it was really allowing me to see, Lauren, this is a choice for me. It's a choice to either give that to myself or to not. And to realize too, for the first time in my life, I think this is a boundary related thing too, that I was really not allowing myself to fully trust that God would give me the people in alignment to support my vision, the opportunities in alignment to generate abundance. Right. So that was why I was just like feeling like I always had to work hard or like do the most or fill my plate. And that self-care didn't matter as much, but I could promote self-care for others. Right. And it's not that I wasn't taking care of myself, but it was like less important than the work, because I didn't see that like it's all one and the same, at least for me, right? So I was able to really have conversations with myself around, okay, what does it look like to actually just call ease into my life? You know what I mean? Yeah. Because that whole Get Loved Up Yoga Teacher Training Month was like a big, easeful, like every day was just ease.
And I can definitely say after doing 5 that, you know, you are one of the few, and you know how I keep up with my alumni, you are one of the few people that still practice for that amount of time. And I always say it doesn't have to be 2 hours. It can be 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Right. But I do notice most of the alumni that that have that practice, maybe I see it in their stories or they're talking about journaling, they are the most successful. And I feel like it goes to show that the more you take care of yourself, the more you can take care of others. Truly. And so, and being a lover and doing for others and creating this platform for others, going back to those boundaries, I know even during the training, that was something that kept coming up. Like for you. So how did you navigate that feel? Okay, you're taking care of yourself, you have your company, and now everyone wants to be a part of Black Girl in Om, and everyone, but you can't do business with everyone. So how do you decide like those boundaries and what they look like for you? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a lot about like honesty with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with others. This is a really big, one more time. If you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with others. Okay. And I'm saying this to myself right now too. It's like it's constantly a work in progress. Like that was actually a really big thing that I called in on the last new moon. Honesty with myself and honesty with others. Right. I think sometimes fear gets in the way of our ability to be honest with ourselves. So fear of like, well, I'll just speak, you know, again to the boundaries with the work thing. So like, if I let my team know that I'm not going to be online really, or I'm not going to be in my usual workflow for a month, you know, XYZ will happen. They won't want to work. They won't want to do what they're going to do, or like all these assumptions that aren't true. Right. Like, what would make me think that just because I'm taking a break, everything's going to fall apart? Right. But I used to really feel that way, you know? And also just trusting and allowing that I've really cultivated the right people around me, both friends who are willing to support me during times where I'm just turning more inward, and then they're still going to be there when I come back out. Yes. And same with my team. Like, things are going to continue to flow because you have literally attracted all the right people to support this vision and to amplify the work too, even more. And trusting too that when there's shifts and people leave and come in and out of your life,
that is divine too, you know?
Right, absolutely. And so allowing it to flow,
Yes.
that's what I'm hearing a lot. And
Yes.
I guess if someone was to say, okay, I want to do this, I want to follow my dreams, I want to follow my intuition, they're listening, they're inspired, but where do I start? Where do I start?
Yes, I
What would be
love
your
that
answer
question. I would say like start leaning into noticing your emotions and just holding them. So not needing to do anything, but just holding them. So my 31st birthday, this past birthday, November, my best friend gifted me a feelings journal. So it was like black and like kind of heavy, and she was like, this is where you're going to write down all the things that you tend to push away. Because she knows I'm Miss Manifestation Queen, right? That I'm always writing and calling in what I want.
Right.
But she, after my 31st birthday, I went on a solo trip. I came back and I was like very, very sad. Like I was in a depressed state. It was after the 4-year anniversary of Black Girl in Om. Like things were magical. You were there. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I treated myself on this vacation, and I came back and I was like low vibration. So she gave me this and she said, write down everything that you don't want to write down everywhere else. And that changed the game for me because it allowed me to see what I usually would be suppressing and what I otherwise told myself also didn't matter. And that was not allowing me to be whole within myself. You know what I mean? Because that's also a part of me.
Absolutely.
And so I think honoring the emotions is different than like even like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes we can allow our emotions to then tell us about ourselves. But I more so view emotions as sources of information that tell us about ourselves. So it's like this morning as an example, I voice memoed you. I was like, girl, I'm really tired. Like I got up at 4 a.m. I was wide awake. I was journaling and now I'm exhausted. Like, can we maybe reschedule this? And then, you know, I decided to move forward with it. And I had to really sit with, okay, why are you so emotional about this? And then I literally was like out loud, like, you are not your emotions right now, Lauren. Like, you're still going to have this amazing conversation. You can allow yourself to notice that you're a little crabby right now. You're a little frustrated that you didn't get sleep. You maybe want to be in a different emotional state, but you are not these emotions. So I put on my beautiful chorus, thanks to you for putting me out of that 2 years ago. I had my turmeric tea. I ate a great breakfast. I meditated, and literally I'm still tired. My body is still energetically tired, but my spirit is right where it needs to be. You know what I mean? So it's like honoring your emotions, acknowledging them, but not letting them run you.
Exactly. You are not your thoughts. Yes. I think that's so important. Like, you are not your thoughts. And what you said, I
we create the thoughts and the stories around the emotions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And I love how you just like writing it down, I feel like is a type of release. Like you are acknowledging, first of all, that I feel these things. And then when you write them down, you don't have to attach to them. You can just like let them go. And even what you did after you said, okay, I'm not feeling good, but I'm going to decide to continue on. And I feel like what you did with the journaling, the meditation, the tea, I feel like those things, which, you know, we teach and get looked up, they help you get to a level of like, okay, I can move forward in a healthy way. Instead of staying in bed and then dragging yourself right before the time, you wouldn't be as vibrant as you look now. And giving all the life and all the energy, but I feel like giving yourself that time of nurture. And pouring into yourself.
And that's that get loved up. Like,
you
way
look
of
all
life.
loved up right now. Like, you look like you can go for like 12 hours.
And when I walked in, like, you immediately commented on how I looked. That was intentional. I needed to wear my power color today. I needed to make sure that I felt vibrant on the outside, because I am vibrant on the inside. But this feeling right now is trying to get me to think otherwise, but that is not me.
Hey, that is so good. That is such a good segue into intentional living. Which I think you do very well. Like, even sometimes I remember when we first moved in and I was going through travel and I was just like, girl, I'm not even getting in all my things. And I have a list of 2 hours of 12 things that I do in the morning. And if I can at least get to half of them, I'm happy. I was getting to like 3 things. And so I remember sharing with you, you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and this and this. I was like, okay, Koya.
Ebb and flow, though.
Ebb and flow.
Yeah, and we inspire each other.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's what's important about having a community and sharing with that community that we're not always perfect. And people might see what you look like now and think like, oh, she woke up like that. But you're being honest, no, I didn't. But
sure didn't.
I nurtured myself, and now I'm able to show up as my best self.
Yes.
And so can you share a little bit more? Because I know you also agreed to send yourself on quarterly retreats, which I think is brilliant. So other things you're doing to live intentionally.
Yes. I want to talk about that, but I also want to emphasize something you just said that's profound. You said you nurtured yourself so you could bring your best self. You know, the 4 agreements.
Yes.
One of them is always do your best.
Yes.
And a key part of that is recognizing that your best is always changing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But always, like, it's not about perfection, you know? And so I've really been cultivating, like, my best today looks different from tomorrow, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't need to abide by this false idea of I always need to be right here. Yeah. So I just love that you said that. Yes, intentional living. So I, as much as possible, really set how do I want to show up in the world, you know? And I know that you're a fan of Gary Zukav too, in the book, The Seed of the Soul, but he defines intention as the quality of consciousness that you bring to a situation. So it's like the situation could be whatever, but if you have committed to being peace and showing up aligned with peace, you're going to show up aligned with peace.
Right. That's so true.
Even if there's chaos, how am I going to show up in alignment with peace? So just a very tangible example, I stepped into 2019 in Bali on a phenomenal manifestation retreat, and I set the intention that this whole year for me was going to be about rejuvenation and regeneration. So what it means to rejuvenate myself, mind, body, spirit, and regeneration is really about, like, I don't know, I think about how, like, I mean, I guess it's kind of icky, but like a centipede, like if you cut its limb off, it'll just grow it right back, I think.
Yeah,
you know, it's just like, it just doesn't matter what you're going to do. I'm still going to grow back and grow back stronger.
Right. Or when you break down a muscle, it over repairs and builds back stronger.
Yes. So, you know, everything that I have done this year, I really have tried to move in alignment with those. Every single decision. So it could be, for example, me deciding where to live, you know?
Yes.
That's a whole story. But I really recommitted to moving to LA because for me, my vibration in LA is where I need it to be. I feel like I can rejuvenate myself here really easily. Feel like I have access to amazing people in my community that are also aligned with my lifestyle. So to me, it was like a stop playing around, stop going back and forth, you're moving to LA. And when I made that recommitment, as you know, everything fell into place, even in alignment with where I now live, and we're neighbors.
I know.
You know, right next to the water, right next to where I can go for runs and just get all the life poured into me. It also looks like small daily choices, like today. Like I knew, okay, you made a commitment, follow through, do what you have to do to pour into you. I could have stayed in a low vibration, stayed like really, I'm tired, attached to what it means to be tired. Girl, it's okay to be tired. You can be tired and still thrive.
You can be tired and still be fierce.
Yes.
Which you are.
Yes. Yeah. So I really poured into me, and, you know, the past me would have maybe like been like, oh, and I wouldn't have done that, because sometimes we get so attached to low vibrations. That's why it's important to keep ourselves lifted.
Right.
Because it's easy. It's like, if you can keep yourself in those high vibrations, you can maintain that. Like, I don't know, I feel like the low vibrations, they can like, it's like quicksand. It can like happen real quick, and then you look up and you're like, I've been depressed for weeks, you know?
Absolutely, and vibrations are contagious.
Yes.
And so the more that you pour into that thought process of I'm feeling low, the more low you feel. But even if you're feeling low, if you pour into I'm going to be my best self, I'm going to do the best I can, you automatically start to elevate without even doing anything other than changing your thoughts. And then you pile on practices like meditation and yoga and, you know, taking a couple supplements and herbs here and there, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh wow, actually
lifted.
Right. Absolutely. Because I'm looking at you and I'm like, this is more vibrant than I've ever seen you. You're wearing your power color. I would never think if you hadn't told me that you were tired.
Girl.
And I think that is so, and I share with you, like, I was up at 4 too.
Yes.
So we're on the same, in the same spiritual hour.
And now we're like energetically feeding each other right now too.
I feel that.
It's better for both of us. But on the intention tip too, one thing I encourage people is to really get clear, like I did, on how you want to commit to showing up. And this isn't arbitrary. So think about, what is it that I need to give myself? What is it that I've gone through lately that needs like nurturing, you know? So for me, I knew that 2018 was a lot of transition. I mean, you spoke to this before. I'm always in a constant state of rebirth. A lot of transition, but also a lot of me not giving myself what I really needed when I knew what I needed. You know what I mean? I was traveling a lot for work. I started to travel for pleasure as well. But I was just like, girl, you just deserve to just pour all the way into yourself. So rejuvenation and regeneration, here we gonna go, right? A lot of times we tell ourselves we have to wait till XYZ happens before we give to ourselves in that way. And I was just like, what's gonna happen if I just am unapologetic in loving myself up and taking these quarterly, you know, spiritual retreats? That has been a blessing. And the beautiful thing about that is, for me, it fills me up even more, and it feeds my work. Like taking time away, taking time to myself fills my work. And it's just so counterintuitive, especially in a culture that prioritizes just the hustle and the grind.
Absolutely.
But it's been absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, setting an intention, you have to come back to it, you know, and that's why I really love the moon cycles, because that is like a monthly time to revisit and refine and set new intentions.
Absolutely.
So I have this overarching all year rejuvenation and regeneration, and then one of my main intentions is also that I'm unconditionally loved and supported. So moving in alignment with that at all times. That's another reason why this morning there was really no other option but to show up, fierce, because you unconditionally supported me. You were like, sis, I get it, and still come through. We're gonna do this. You were supporting me in doing that, and I feel literally so much better. Like I'm so glad that I just followed through. But every new moon, I set a new intention, or I refine an old one, and then I see how that develops over the course of the 29 days, and I get to honor my emotions. It's everything that we've been talking about in this conversation. Honoring and paying attention to my emotions over the course of that, because setting an intention, you have to follow it. You can't just be like, all right, that's over there now. It's like, no, how am I coming back to this? How am I allowing myself to even sometimes struggle through it and be okay with that? You know what I mean? What am I learning in the process? Life is just about learning at the end of the day.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And one of the things you said really reminded me, you know, filling up your cup and getting loved up. And, you know, one of those quotes from Lisa Nichols, you know, you need to fill up your cup and give from the overflow. That is one of my favorite quotes. And that's literally what you're doing, like with your quarterly spiritual retreats. You're filling your cup, and then you're nurturing everyone around you with the blessings that overflow from that time of nurturing yourself. And I think that's so important for us as women, because we often try to give to others first, and be humble, like, oh no, not me. I eat last, I take care of myself last. But if we just knew, if everyone listening could only just know, like from you, from me, that the more that you pour into yourself, the more that you're going to have to pour into others.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I saw is your title that you are speaking about more and more often, which is really a passion of mine, of being like a spiritual activist. And I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, and what does spiritual activism look like to you?
I love that. Yeah, for me, it's like really recognizing that at the end of the day, I am a spiritual being, right? Navigating this human experience, and that all of the work that I'm doing is really in the service of something much greater, you know? And I have also inherited a legacy that is a deeply spiritual one from my ancestors. I've been doing a lot more ancestral work, as you know, in ancestral healing. So for me, leaning into spirituality and really claiming that as central to my existence, and supporting especially other Black women on navigating their spiritual path and spiritual purpose and awakening, is something that is profoundly sparking transformation on an individual level, but on a collective level too, you know? So it's like sparking change that is sometimes happening in this invisible realm, but is like very much impacting this physical reality too. So, you know, we have a lot of conversations about how much the divine feminine energy is elevating on the planet. And this happens in really, like, I see this in really direct ways in my life. Just a brief story. The first week that I lived here in LA, I went to Malibu to the beach with 2 Black girlfriends of mine, and we did this really beautiful ceremony for our ancestors. In particular, each of our grandmothers have passed away in. My grandmother passed away 2 years ago. I can't remember when theirs passed away. It was maybe further back. We honored them with flowers and poured libations, and we're singing, and we put the flowers in the ocean. About an hour later, this little girl walks over to some of the flowers that had washed up on the beach, and she starts pulling up the flowers. And at first we were like, what is she doing? We were like, oh. And then she starts arranging them in a circle. She wasn't there when we did the ceremony, mind you. She starts arranging them in a circle just by herself. And then she puts 3 of the white roses in the middle. There were 3 of us in the middle, sticking straight up from the sand. And then she just left it there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's magical.
Yes. So that's what I mean. Like, that was like something that is inexplainable, you know what I mean? So powerful, and really shows this connection that we all have spiritually to the divine, to our ancestors, and to one another as women,
right.
And so, yeah, I think I'm still really receiving a lot of wisdom around how this will continue to show up in my work and into my life. But I went on this really powerful spiritual retreat recently with Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, and being around like spiritual teachers who have been like a part of both an activist tradition in terms of like social justice and change, as well as a spiritual tradition that also is influencing change. Like, that is where I really feel like the most like, well, I feel in my purpose in a few different settings, but that is one of the places where I really feel like I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be a part of these conversations. I'm supposed to be leading conversations like this, because I have both the awareness of society is messed up, and here are all these systems of oppression that are harming us and us on a global level, harming the entire collective.
Right.
Even if it's harm that is inflicted from one group to another, it's harming everybody because it's not aligned with love.
Right.
And also, here is what wellness and well-being can do: heal us individually, heal us intergenerationally. Putting those in conversation with one another, that's everything to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really agree. And I feel like we need to have this conversation more. And a lot of times the conversation, especially when you make the transition that you've made, that I've made, from having this Christian upbringing and transitioning to doing things a little bit differently than we did when we were younger. And I feel like that's something that people are still a little bit uncomfortable with. Like, how do I develop, this practice that doesn't look like what I grew up with?
Yeah.
And so can you speak a little bit to that? Like, someone listening, like, okay, this sounds good, but what I thought when I started, am I worshiping Buddha? Like, what about these, figurines and stuff like this and these people on the wall? Like, I don't know about that. And there's a lot of fear that comes up. And so how would you speak to that and just encourage people to, try yoga and meditation and the things that you speak of?
Yeah, I love this conversation. I feel like I didn't realize it, but for a long time I was scared about even exploring, because essentially I was socialized into a religious practice. Right. And so that was just my norm. It was like the air that I breathe, the water that I drink. It was just like what was the norm. And it wasn't until a class in college that was about exploring most of the major world religions through the lens of how much does this religion promote justice and peace in the world, and how much does it do the opposite, that I really even started to think about other religions and other spiritual traditions. And then that's where the fear came up. It was like, wait, I can't even do this. And then I was like, wait, why are you so afraid to even explore, to even question? So for a while, I didn't even identify with anything because I was just like, I feel like I just need to press pause. But I was always praying. I was always connected to God. I was always connected to the divine, because that is, to me, irrespective of religious institution or a particular organized framework, because it just, to me, it just is. Nice. I think of that India Arie song where she's singing about nature and like, how can you even deny that God is real? Because it's like, you just look at how magical the earth is,
Absolutely.
So for me, I really just encourage, like, lean into what you're curious about and try to be as loving with yourself about not judging yourself for wanting to explore. Like, there is nothing wrong with exploring. Like, that is completely normal and natural, especially as it relates to God. It's like, that is the most exciting thing to explore. Like, go check out, you know, a local, I don't know, like Buddhist temple, and just go and just be open, you know, have a conversation with yourself, literally out loud, just pray and be like, God, how do you show up in my life? Like, how can I communicate with you more? It might not be the traditional prayer that you grew up reciting. And that's, to me, even better, because it's coming from a deeper, realer, more authentic place from within you, you know? And I'm having more phenomenal, life-changing conversations with people in my life who are, you know, more traditionally rooted, specifically within Christianity, because I'm being real. And we're having these powerful conversations that I think are fueling one another's faith even more, you know? So for me, it's like, I have a stronger relationship to God now than I ever had in my life. And it's because I was willing to explore and ask questions and lean into different practices and different ways of accessing and connecting with God than I ever could have imagined before. And I'm so grateful for my upbringing. I'm not like, it's not thrown in the trash.
I think that's beautiful. I think that we're in the same page on that. It's like, I love my upbringing and my roots and, you know, everything from the way my parents taught me. And I feel like this constant evolution and change, and as you say, just exploring can lead to something beautiful. And if indeed the Holy Spirit is within all of us and that part of the Trinity, that it is constantly guiding us. And I love the fact that you're constantly, because when we say follow our intuition, like, I feel like that's all spiritually fused. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about your travels and how, you know, because I feel like when I travel, I see so many different ways to worship, to serve, to, you know, really connect spiritually. So how has your travels affected your practice and your spirituality?
I love that. So I'm a Sagittarius, and one thing about us is that we are just constant learners and teachers. And travel is a huge part of how we learn and how we absorb life. So in true Sag fashion, like, if I don't travel, I don't feel myself, and I feel like I'm missing out and other people are missing out. So when I travel, and my friends tell me this all the time, but like, I share so much when I come back because of what I absorb on these experiences. So for me, every single day that I travel, I get some divine spark of inspiration or a synchronistic experience that leads me to somewhere I need to go. So for example, when I was in Bali, literally day one that I arrived, I was exhausted, I was jet lagged, you know, it takes 24 hours to get there. And I arrived in the early, kind of mid-evening, it was like 8 p.m. And my friend Tiffany Lester, who I was rooming with, had let me know in advance that they had a really phenomenal spa there, right? And so I was like, let me swing by the spa on my way up to my room to book an appointment for tomorrow so I can really get loved up in my body, right? I go there and they're like, oh, well, we can see you tomorrow at 3. And I was like, well, that's when the retreat starts. And they were like, okay, well, you could just come right now. And, you know, that seems like a seemingly just like innocent interaction, like doesn't really matter that much. But for me, it was really profound because I had all these realizations leading up to the Bali experience around how I wasn't unconditionally loving myself. I was conditionally loving myself, which meant that I would only give to myself what I needed if I did all these things. And usually all these things were unrealistic. So that's actually not love, you know what I mean? So it was a moment of like, wait, why would you say no? And I went upstairs, put my bags down, came downstairs, received the best massage of my entire life. And when I say I didn't have any jet lag the rest of the experience, traveling 24 hours, like everyone on the official first day of the retreat like I walked over to the pool and saw the girls and I was like, are you all here for the retreat? And they're like, yeah. I was like, me too. And they're like, why are you so perky? And I was like, y'all, I got this massage last night. I was like, I feel great. Like they could tell that I was glowing and it was from a deeper place. Right. And then lo and behold, the whole retreat was focused on unconditionally loving and supporting ourselves. And it was 2 hours, I think, before the retreat officially started that I overheard an interaction between a father and his daughter. She was maybe 5 years old. Right. He looks at her and he was like, always remember that you are loved for who you are, not for what you do. I got emotional. This is what I'm saying. Like when I travel, say that again. He said, always remember that you are loved for who you are, not for what you do. That's beautiful. And I needed that message. Right. And I didn't hear any other aspect of that conversation other than that. That's not that's not an accident. Right. You know what I mean? So I could go on and on and on about stories like this. I mean, when I was in Thailand the week after Bali, I ended up meeting a woman who offered to let me stay with her when I moved to LA, which then allowed me to say, you're moving to LA. Right. Now, a week before I moved to LA, I ended up manifesting my dream place with the support of my ancestors and God. So I didn't even end up living with her, but it was that willingness of this complete stranger that I met in Thailand and me saying yes and not doubting it that led me to actually be on track to navigate to this being my home. You know what I'm saying? So Absolutely. It's like, I literally, this is why I'm writing a book though, girl. I can't wait. Speaking of book, let's kind of talk about like what is next for you personally and also what is coming up for a Black Girl in Home. Because I know you got a lot of little goodies up your sleeve. Yes.
So,
wow. So, I mean, currently the Black Girl in Home podcast is in season 4. We've had phenomenal guests so far. And we have conversations on self-care and healing and well-being overall as Black women. So Koya is on the show. So all y'all gotta tune in.
Well, I'll put the link for that too, so
that
people
can see
like our conversation there.
That would be great. Yes. And we have so much coming up. I mean, it's our 5-year anniversary this fall. We're gonna be doing something really phenomenal for that. We have just a lot of changes on the horizon as well, all for the better, I would say. And we will be announcing those things when the time is ripe. On a more personal level, I am in the very beginning stages of becoming an author.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and I just look forward to sharing my journey as a means to inspire. That's really one of my purposes, like using my story to inspire particularly Black women to really live with intention, show up and even recognize what is my authentic self, what is my authentic life, what does that look like, and to move in alignment with that. And to recognize what are your values, what is your purpose, and how you can say yes to that and no to the things that aren't.
Absolutely.
that aren't, So I'm really just looking forward to that. I mean, I've been a writer for as long as I can remember, and that's in my blood as well. My grandmother was a writer, my cousin's a writer, like they're all published. And so it's really encouraging for me to see more of my Black girlfriends like you being really bold in sharing your stories and authoring books, and for more of us to do it. There could never be too many stories by Black women who have been mastering what it means to thrive, you know what I mean? And healing.
Healing is so important. And with that, I wanted to say, because we know, and I feel like you, what my grandmother said, you're just so well put together. That's what my grandmother would say about you. But with that, realistically, I want to kind of bring it full circle. Like, what are you struggling with? Because even though we are, have all these things going on, we still struggle on a daily basis. So can you share something that you're struggling with right now?
Yes. So something that I'm like working through right now is, and I talked to my therapist about this last week. Right. I literally feel like I am simultaneously thriving and living my best life and being dragged. Because this is a tremendous time of transition for me. I moved to LA 4 months ago. We're going through like a team restructure on Black Girl in Home. So literally everything is changing on our team, and everything is still in alignment with our mission, but it's like transition, like with everybody, that's a lot at once, right? I consciously uncoupled from my partner of 3 years at the top of this year. So like I'm single and navigating a whole new life as a single person, for the first time since I was 27 or so, 28 or 27. I am getting more opportunities in alignment with my career than ever before. And that's an amazing thing, but it's also like, it can be overwhelming, you know?
Right.
Like the list goes on, you know? And it's like, it's so easy for me to try and, again, not honor my emotions and only focus on the amazing things, right? Like, this is going right. I want to feel good. I want to feel happy. So let me just do all that. But I also, and this is why I talk with my therapist, need to continue to practice leaning into what doesn't feel so good and asking, what is this showing me? What is this teaching me? And to go against that pattern that I've developed for almost 30 years of only leaning into and embracing the feel good. Because that's just not a real way to live, you know? So I have to intentionally cultivate practices like therapy, continuing to journal, not just about what I want in my life, but also like what's coming up that doesn't feel great, and set intentions that allow me to strengthen all of my spiritual muscles, you know? And to be honest with myself and my friends, like, I still catch myself, you know, if friends are like, how are you doing? And I'll just like focus on what's great. If they're asking me, I need to trust that they're asking me because they really want to know.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so really being willing to be vulnerable, I think I could sum up all of it in continuing to be vulnerable with myself and others and my work.
Right.
You know? And I think that I really have leaned into a practice that Brene Brown talks about, the braving method, which is a framework for building trust as well. And it's been really life-changing having conversations with people that are really important to me and saying like, hey, how can we build a better foundation for our relationship? Right. But at the end of the day, it starts with me doing that with myself, and that's what I'm really doing.
That is beautiful. So many beautiful nuggets in this conversation, and I'm so grateful for you coming on. Thank you. Couldn't wait, and I'm so excited, and you know, I'm so excited you said yes, even though you had an early morning, because this has been magical.
This is real life.
Everyone listening is going to receive a lot of value out of it, and even at your tiredest, you are still so great, and that's what I like to speak into myself and others. Like, even if you don't think that you're showing up, there's the days where I don't wear makeup, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're beautiful." Yes. And so, just congratulations for continuing to shine and bless us with your wisdom and your beauty and your grace. Thank you. And is there anything you can leave with everyone? And
well, something you just said sparked something. So maybe this is like something that people need to hear. But what you said, like me just being really tired, but still showing up. Like one thing I did before I came, you know, I have a little altar above my little fireplace, and I literally just put like some oil on my body and sprayed myself with some Florida water. And I was just like, God, ancestors, please just speak through me today, because I don't even know what I'm going to say. But that is the best way to show up, I think, in life in general. Like remembering that you are a vessel. You know what I mean? And I think too, for anyone like watching or listening, like you don't necessarily have to like have a wellness career or business or platform like Koya and I do, but you can be a vessel with whatever work you're doing, whatever life like is bringing you as your responsibility. You can be a vessel for that. And so releasing your own preconceived notions about what that journey is going to look like, and just allowing for like God, spirit, source, the universe, whatever you want to name it, to speak through you and move through you, that is where you're going to be your most powerful.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Awesome. Where can everyone find you online and on social? So my personal pages are all Hello Lauren Ash across all the social pages. I'm most active on Instagram, and also Black Girl in Om, which Om is spelled O-M. So yeah, I look forward to staying connected with everybody. Well, I love having you on today, and I love being a part of Black Girl in Om, and I love that you're a part of Get Loved Up, and I'm just so grateful for this sisterhood. Of course. And I know everyone will be blessed by this podcast. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We just do a little heart and toss it at the people.